What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020, Best Podcast News winner and 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Also, I host the only online conversational world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And through that collaboration last year, since we're now into a new year, in 2021, with that collaboration, I was able to reach out to over 100 dads and fathers around the world. So I appreciate that and don't take it for granted. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Broadcasting live January 2nd. This is actually the second live broadcast I've done this year, but this is first Black Canada Talking for 2022. And for those who don't know, and for those who know, Black Canada Talking is a live online event that provides Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories that are of importance to them. Also, we showcase Black Canadians, but we're kicking it off right with the first roundtable of 2022. And I also want to wish everyone a happy 2022. And we have our three regulars here. And of course, we go ladies first in the home of Dr. Vibe here. Elle Jones, how you doing? And happy 2022.
Happy. You can see happy 2022. Happy New Year. You can see I'm a bit orange. I'm in my childhood bedroom. So you guys can see.
Oh, there we go.
There's not any lighting here. And I have this like light on my face. It's making me orange. So I'm not actually orange.
So where are you located right now?
I'm in Winnipeg right now. I'm going back to Halifax soon, but yeah. I came out right before the whole COVID, wave.
Yeah. So. Wow. And it's a little cold out there, I heard.
Yeah, it's a little better today, but the last couple of days was like minus 30, whatever, which isn't new. It's always like that in Winnipeg. But yeah.
Wow. Well, and how was the holiday season treating you?
Well, everything, everything got locked down. So I get to see my family, but I might have had COVID. So, at this point, they just said anything, just don't test, just stay home. And so what I will say is vax y'all, because I'm double vax. So I had fever, chill, fatigue, stuff like that, but nothing too serious. And it's likely it was COVID because it was like everywhere. So yeah, get your vaccinations. Definitely helps. But because of that, you don't really want to see people. So it's been pretty calm, but it's nice to at least see my family, and that's about it. So
yeah. When are you heading back to the east?
Actually, Tuesday. So.
Confirmed?
Yeah.
Okay. Don't want to hear your rescheduling of flights. Actually, Tuesday's a really big flight day for everybody. I'm picking up a cousin who's coming back from Jamaica. My brother's family is coming back from Saskatchewan. So it seems like Tuesday's a heavy travel day.
Yeah, well, we were supposed to start school on Thursday, but now it's put off and now we're online. But, initially when I booked, I had to come back to start the semester, but that's delayed, obviously.
So let me ask, how long is the schooling being put back online for?
We start on the 10th, but we're definitely online until the end of January, and then they're going to reassess.
So, wow.
Yeah, we're not back in person.
What's your thought about that?
I don't know.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to hold on that because we're
going
to
get into we'll talk about the impact.
Yeah, we're going to. All right, because I don't want to keep our other panelists waiting. Next up, we have Cesar. What is going on, Cesar from Ottawa?
Hi, Dr. Vibe. Hi, Sister L. Hi, my Black people worldwide. Hi, BIA Media. I'm good. Holidays happened. We had some family visits. Honestly, my sympathies to my sister L. I come to know, and I want to think all of us come to know more and more of our people who are contracting COVID. Good for those for whom it's a light thing, but for many others, it's. I read some horror stories of entire Black families. Even just yesterday, 2 days ago, sorry. One of my former mentees who was a borderline anti-COVID vaccine, anti-mask, seeing the conspiracy and all that. His entire family is in bed right now, in pain. So my sympathies. Besides that, 2022, the real question is, are we in 2022 going to 2023, or is this 2022 like 2021?
Good perspective. All right, we're going to get deep. We're going to deep dive into a lot of that stuff during the next little bit. Next up, Ryan Knight of the African Caribbean Business Network, the man who was online for the last 7 days with Kwanzaa festivities.
Oh yes, following along and learning about Kwanzaa. Got to celebrate through CAFCAN. So if anybody knows the organization here in Toronto, CAFCAN, they were connected with the JCA. They did the 7 days in partnership with different organizations. So like Adinkra Farms, African food markets. Oh my gosh, a different book list, knowledge bookstore. So it was really good. And yeah, having my children here beside me, singing songs, making up songs, dancing. Yes, getting out of our comfort zone, moving into 2022 strong.
Excellent. Well, you know what? Let's get at it. And we've already talked a little bit about COVID, but let's take a little bit of a deeper dive. I will just make a quick start that this round of the COVID, I know people, like there's people I know personally who have had it, there's very close associate of mine. His family went away to Mexico about 2.5 weeks ago. The mother-in-law was with them. Mother-in-law gets tested at the airport. 2 days later, she finds out she has COVID. He got COVID. His son got COVID, and his wife had coughing, and so she may have had symptoms also. Then one of the saddest stories I've heard, and I don't know this lady directly, and I don't remember her name, but it was on Facebook. There's a lady who did, her and her husband did T-shirts, and their whole family got COVID. And apparently she went to bed one night and didn't wake back up. Don't remember the lady's name. I'll see if I can find it during the conversation. And then relatives of mine, I got COVID, son has COVID, daughter has COVID. So this is a different level for me right now, because now I actually personally know people who are hit by COVID this round. So I just wanted to start off there. Who wants to continue on?
Yeah, and I think one thing that's important to know in this round is it can be anything, because it's fused with the cold, right? So Omicron has fused with cold and flu. So some of the symptoms are different, right? So at first, I wasn't sure if it could be, because I didn't have any respiratory symptoms at all, but that's actually really common. So I had the fatigue, muscle aches, cold sweats, fever, chill stuff, but I never coughed or anything. And like right now, because they don't even have tests, they'd like just assume anything you feel is COVID. And that's been kind of different. Like I was talking to a friend of mine and we both did sports. And we were like, we were all taught to like push through, like it didn't matter. You had a headache, you had cramps, you were puking, you just went. And so it's been really difficult to sort of be like, okay, just because you can't go out, like you have to sit down, you can't be around people, like just changing that mindset, I think has been really difficult for a lot of people. That we get it, like if you're coughing up and you can't move, you should stay in bed. But this time round is actually important that it's like if you have a mild headache, if you have a sore throat, it's not because of you. Like if you're vaccinated, you might be okay. But there's some senior out there, some person with low immunity that could get this really hard. So you have to actually work harder to protect each other, because it may not feel like a big deal. And that was kind of my experience. Like it didn't feel that bad, but I actually, I like go to this gym with like old Jewish people, and I'm like, but they're all gonna like get sick. Like they're all like seniors, it's like the senior fitness center, and I'm like, yeah, I got to stay away. Right. So it's also about protecting other people. Right. And like, even if it's a small symptom, you think I can go to work. Oh, sure. I can see my family. Like just be really careful, because it's everything. It's like literally any symptom it can be. And then the other thing I'll say quickly before we move on is it's really hitting our jails really, really hard, our jails and prisons. I got a call from an African Nova Scotian man in prison today. And he said there's 6 people on the range had it and they didn't move anybody out. So now 16 have it. People have it on both sides of him. The ventilation is shared between cells. So everyone's trying to like block up their ventilations. They're not getting fresh masks. So they have the same masks. The guards are wiping things down once in a while. They don't have their own wipes. So the phones are shared, and like no one's even, the jail basically said, we don't have the structure to deal with this. Like we can't wash your stuff. We can't isolate you. So you're all going to get it. And a lot of those guys aren't vaccinated because a lot of people didn't trust the system. Like there's a lot of reasons, as we know with our people. And obviously people that have been through the system have even less trust. So a lot of them well, like, no, I'm not getting vaccinated. So they're in real danger. So it's really tearing through those institutions. There's like huge amounts of cases in prisons and jails. So, and we know obviously that a lot of our people have been placed there. So again, even if it's mild for us personally, it's really important that people don't go, oh, well, I got it. It was no big deal. It was just like a sore throat. It was like a cold. Who cares? I'm just going to, like, you actually have to think that, yeah, but that person in jail can get it and they have low immunity. That older person can get it. So really, yeah, like, be safe and go get your boosters. That's my PSA today.
And that was one big thing that my brother sent out a message to the whole family saying his best friend, I don't know if, like, who transmitted to their father, but then their father passed away. So he's saying, like, listen, I know we all love our parents, but we have to be careful. Be careful as you're going to visit mom and dad, and really be double careful, because he's seen it with his own eyes, his own best friend, father passing away. And my wife has told me stories of people really regretting going to see their parents, giving them COVID, and then their parents passing. And it's like, how can you turn back the time, right? So it's so important what you're saying.
If I can just add, what you're both saying is so accurate, because, as Brother Dr. Vibe just talked about how, when people who are having it and you've seen the consequences, let us remember right here on this show, we had our brother Warren Clark talking about his own daughter. This is not, it's never, it's never that far. I think I shared how an aunt I was not close to in Cameroon died of COVID. Cameroon, aka Africa, is not exactly the place where people are just going to claim COVID on a person. I find sad, but I'm not really surprised at how many in our community play COVID like it's a joke, like it's just a flu, due to the distrust that so many have, rightfully, by the way, towards the government and towards medicine due to the history of systemic racism. However, as a reminder, we are the Black community, but also indigenous people, and as Sister Elle mentioned, those notably in jails. We are the Black community that is disproportionately affected by COVID. We are the Black community where many, notably in the US, as in Brazil, don't have the means to buy for the medication. So I find that for many, they're actually complaining from a place of privilege, from a place of speaking of, authoritarian / whatever regime, and yet they're not accepting the consequences of the choices, while their neighbors, people down the street, people in their own community, are actually suffering the brunt of it. And when I say brunt, I'm not saying we should just be thinking in the worst of cases, aka someone had COVID and they died and how it impacts their family. The reality when we are Black is that someone is sick, has to be bedridden for 2 or 3 days. That can definitely impact whether or not they still have a job at the end of that week, especially in a time of the year where expenses are higher, expectations are higher in terms of gifts and, feeding others. That 2 or 3 days, a couple of months down the road, can play against you because the employer won't care. I remember in a Quebec publication getting trashed by some brothers and sisters because they were so sympathetic to the case of this white woman who is a bar owner. She is a bar owner. She is a white woman. She's privileged. She is a Quebecer. Nothing close to the reality of the average Black person, indigenous person in Quebec. And she is basically, she's a business owner. She will be fine. The measures, no matter how restrictive, will never impact her the same as her staff, even if they're white. So imagine when they are Black. I think a lot of our people, I'm really sorry to say this, and this is going to come off so harsh, but it has to be said. In the conversation that our brothers, Brother Martin Luther King and Malcolm X had regarding integration, this is why we are seeing too many Black people being so comfortable in integration. They forget the Blackness. They forget that we come from a place where it's not just our ancestors. It's not just our grandparents. Sometimes it's our own parents live the struggle that basically made what we're going through right now. With all respect for those for whom it's hard, it's really not that bad. Yes, couple of weeks, couple of months. But one thing I like to remind people, no matter how you feel about him, JT, aka Justin Trudeau, is actually giving people checks. Healthcare still takes you in without you having to pay. I mean, so many examples that we can give. So please, my Black people, go get vaccinated. My family, we got that booster, that third dose. And if you ask me, yeah, we may take a fourth dose if it comes to it. Israel, people in Israel are getting a fourth dose. I mean,
I just want to interject, and great comments by everyone here. And I'm not saying this from a pro or anti, but I'm not hearing a lot of members of the Black environment who are anti-talking right now. Is that because
they talk online?
Well, I haven't heard. I maybe because it's been going on so long. Maybe now, are you still, each of you, still hearing the anti-vaxxers from the Black environment? I haven't heard any lately, but
yeah, definitely. I feel they've made their own groups now.
We just had one in the chat.
Yes.
Right. So
we just had one making endless comments as we were speaking, saying that you trust the CDC. Come on, bro. What do you mean privilege? This is stupid, right? And obviously, as Cesar said, like, I understand someone who's in prison who is receiving medical abuse. I understand why you wouldn't want the nurse that one day is testifying against you in court and the next day, that medical staff is coming in and giving you a needle. Like, I get that. I understand that the people that are strip searched for methadone don't trust the medical staff. So I'm not saying they're stupid. I'm saying there are reasons why a lot of people, for example, in the jail were like, no, you're not coming near me with that needle. I don't trust you. But now we're in this wave where it's absolutely tearing through places, and all those guys are at like incredible risk, and they're not letting them out. Now they just started doing release plans like this week, only because they realized that they can't handle it. But yeah, I mean, it's really worrying that a lot of our people, and we're not white people in that we're not going to go and storm a restaurant in a mall because we know we're going to get arrested, right? So we're not going to do what Chris Guy did in Edmonton, where they like dressed up like Santa and went and like stormed a Build-A-Bear. Like, Black people would be in prison if we did that, So no, we're not doing that. But a lot of people are just, minding their business and not doing it. And it is your business. Like, you can't force people to do something. But what we're saying is that, it is very concerning, right? It is. It's not a joke, and older people are still really vulnerable. People with low immunity are very vulnerable. And guess what? Racism causes these things. Racism causes diabetes, high blood pressure, like heart disease. All of those things are scientifically proven to have a health effect on Black people. Racism kills us. It cuts years from our life. And if we have elders and people who have lived through racism, going to their job every day, experiencing that, breathing in chemicals from your cleaning job, on the construction site, having your body destroyed, all of this stuff has played on our bodies, and we are extremely vulnerable to this as a result because of racism, right? And then because of racism, we don't want to protect ourselves. And it is very concerning.
And a big piece, if we haven't realized that coming out of 2021, if we don't control our own infrastructure, we are slaves to the system. Like, a person that's anti-vaccine right now says, listen, I'm not putting that in my body. What is the ecosystem that you're living in? Everything is being connected to this vaccine and COVID, and making sure that we keep each other safe. So people, anti-vaxxers, when I talk to them, they're like, keeping us safe, but they're like, oh, but the vaccine is the one that will kill. It's like, sure, if you make that decision, now what ecosystem are you living in? If you're going to stay on your own and become a high, I remember I had a baseball teammate, and I got hooked on conspiracies because of this man. He would show me all these videos, Illuminati, all over the place. But he said if they ever mandated vaccines, he's going to take his kids and go to the mountains. And so said, so done. Now it's being mandated. I need to get a contact with him to see, like, yo, Chris, are you in the mountains somewhere? I don't even know if I'll be able to get a hold of him. But this is
actually, I do know indirectly one or two families that have gone, like to Costa Rica.
Yeah.
They've left. They've left the
us,
North
like,
American continent, and they're gone. They're gone.
So now that's the decision you have to make. If you make a decision to go against society, but still want to live in society, you're going to have this big friction there. And so as Black people, I always look at what infrastructure should we be building that we can now be the direct response for ourselves? If we had our own justice system, now we probably have, I'll say, a better I would say we'd have better solutions for what Elle is talking about that's happening in prisons right now. If we had our own health system, we probably would be more trusting of the solutions that are coming out of it down the line. So if we haven't come to the conclusion to build our own infrastructure, we have to submit to the system that we're in, unless you don't want to be part of it anymore. And if we don't have our own thing, where are you going to go? So that's kind of, I'm 2022. I'm all about infrastructure. How do we have our own first response, CAS, justice? How do we have our own health system? How do we have our own schools, bank? Well, I'm more focused on the banking system right now, because I feel like being in the economic sphere, that's where I could probably get more traction. But the people that are playing a big role in the other pillars, they need somebody to write a check. So yes, we want to have our own education infrastructure, but who's going to pay for it? We have to be able to build up this economic power to be able to say, no, we're not going to get vaccinated from you. We have our own doctors. We do our own research and development. We have our own infrastructure to analyze and then create our own vaccine, and we will trust that. But until it's there, hey, I'm double vaxxed. When the booster's ready, we're trying to decide for our kids. So, yeah.
And don't forget, it's South African doctors who identified Omicron. Like, not white doctors in a white country, Black doctors, Cuban doctors have been doing all kinds of development of vaccines. So this idea that it's like only white people that believe in COVID, or this is like, some white conspiracy, like, we have doctors across the world and scientists. There are Black people working on this in Black countries, like.
But in South Africa actually has a low vaccination rate because they have their own infrastructure, that their protocols are keeping COVID rates lower than what we're doing over here. So now, if you have better systems, maybe you don't have to get vaccinated. But if your systems are weak, maybe you have to get vaccinated.
I would be careful on that assumption, brother, because it is also the same. And I hate to say what will sound like that white supremacist stroke, but it is the same South Africa that has a much higher infection rate of HIV among its population, especially Black population. The truth of the matter is simply this: from the very start, COVID, 2019, we've had Black specialists involved. We've had Black doctors. We have Black doctors and specialists addressing the community, doing Zoom to speak about it. My sister-in-law is a doctor here in Ottawa. She has been involved. The thing is, what we really have is, and I'm skipping it to the Black community, but one can easily see the link with the dominant white majority. It's a nature of distrust in science and distrust in the information. It is not so much a matter of the Black physician. Like, perfect example, how many times didn't people bring to me the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, and yet they're the same people who were completely ignorant that it's the same Tuskegee Institute that basically participated and legitimized the vaccine against polio. They don't care about the part of the Tuskegee being involved in the polio vaccine. They just make sure to let you know about the syphilis experiment. These are the same, too many of the same Black people who, to give an example, will purposefully share misleading and false information. They will basically, this is not a matter of, there comes a point, it's not a matter of opinion. It's not a matter of doubt. We have people who are outright in our community doing something very dangerous, which is purposefully and willfully lying to our people. Individually, it wouldn't be a problem if it wasn't that we do have Black seniors, but also healthy Black adults, and even Black youth who are contracting COVID, paying the hard consequences, and many are dying. From Canada to Brazil, it cannot be accidental that Blacks are disproportionately affected by COVID. From Canada to Brazil. So The vaccines are here. The vaccines were never claimed. No vaccine claims to be 100% safe, but every vaccine, whether it's 99% or 1%, is there to limit, diminish the consequences of having the virus.
But that's where, when they say, we know it's not 100% safe,
but it
and
doesn't
yet
have
they,
to be 100%.
but they have no liability, though. That's what throws people off. If
No,
I'm
no.
putting something into the world that's not safe, not 100% safe.
It's a mind frame, brother. The same people who will say that they have no problem driving and putting on a seatbelt. Since when are seatbelts 100% safe?
Yeah, but there was pushback against the seatbelt too.
That's what I'm saying. It's a mind frame. You cannot,
right?
Kind of like, I've said it to some people, to some I know anti-vaxxers who ended up catching COVID, and because they caught COVID, suddenly they changed their mind and they stopped claiming that it was just a flu. But they had to get it. They have to hit the wall. It sounds harsh. I am not in the business of butting head with someone. You want to believe whatever you want. Hey, everybody knows my speech on religion. I'm not going to fight against you if you choose to believe in Jesus, Allah, heaven, or hell. But you need to eventually face the harsh reality and really reassess your position. At the end of the day, one thing that I know, Black people are disproportionately affected by COVID, disproportionately dying, and as such, vaccines are helping. I stand for science. Can science change? 100%. Can we improve? A new variant calls for a new vaccine. Absolutely. This is not some conspiracy theory that someone said 5 years ago or 2 years ago. It's science. It's the way it works. That's it. That's all.
Okay.
That's it.
Al, before we move on, do you have any more closing thoughts? Because we could go the whole conversation about this, but we got other things to chat about. And I know this is not going to go away anytime soon either. But Al, any closing thoughts on this conversation?
No, I was just going to say, obviously, yeah, like also we have to be really mindful of mental health as a result of this. A school I taught at, King's College, that just had 2 suicides by young people. So I think we also have to make sure, like, check for each other.
Yeah.
Make sure you're checking in on people. You can still have contact online. I think we have to be more vigilant about, especially those people that may not have as much family contact, people that may be international students, stuff like that, because the isolation is like really taking its toll. And for, say, young people, if you're not in the classroom, you can notice if somebody doesn't look good. If you're a teacher, you can be like, is everything okay? But if someone's online with their camera off, you don't even really notice who's online. And so, somebody can be totally isolated, doing really badly, and nobody knows. And so I'm very worried also that we're going to start seeing more and more mental health crises, which we are seeing, like we saw that at the Olympics, right? Like athletes, the most mentally strong and supported people were like all having mental health issues. So just also make sure that we're checking in on each other, checking for each other, and not leaving people behind, because we're going back into a period of isolation now. We are in a period of isolation, and that's going to be really rough. And I think a lot of people are really tapped out on this. So I'm very, like I was telling you at the beginning, we're back online for a month, and I'm worried about the students and the impact of that on them.
Well put, Elle. Very, very well. And yeah, I just want to say, everyone, check in on each other. Very, very important. Even if sending a text message or leaving a voicemail message, or just reach out if you have the capacity. And if you need help, please reach out. This is very, very serious, very important. Got some comments here from Sandy. Nothing is 100% safe. Also, COVID is here, and we need to learn how to manage it. We are not designed to be isolated. We need to be alert for our neighbors. Well put. All right. Let's reflect back on the previous year. We're in the second day of a new year, but still somewhat fresh. Any one of you want to talk about any stories or events of impact over the past year? Any stories or people that you felt that said either yourself or to the Black environment in Canada that you felt were impactful? Who would like to give a start?
I have a quick one. I loved seeing the Black-owned Toronto store opening at Scarborough Town Center, because to me, those that know the story of Black Wall Street, it just rebirthed that conversation and said, listen, we can come together. I think there's about 150 vendors that's in the store to create its own marketplace. Again, like on a small version. And now to just seeing that that concept keep growing. Now Brampton has a similar concept, the Canadian Black-owned marketplace. Black-owned is in Eaton Center, and I think there's a Pickering one. And other people are having, hey, we can, that's what Walmart does. It just is a building filled of vendors. So we can do for ourselves. So seeing that pop up and really gain traction this year, I think is the right way forward going forward. Now we need our own building to have our own Walmart-esque type store. So I'm looking forward to seeing that growing.
Good start. Anyone else? Go ahead, Elle.
I was going to say, Cesar, do Desmond Tutu. I'm sure you. And did you see Parliament just going up in flames? But
you're reading my alleged mind. Yeah. I had the same thought. To talk about Desmond Tutu, but whoever wants to chat with him first.
Well, Cesar, if you can kick us off on that.
What I would say, and I shared about his death, it is really the passing of a generation in terms of not only Madiba, Nelson Mandela's ally, but the way I put it on my Facebook is that even though he was an archbishop and he served the Christian faith, he was first and foremost Black, African, and he stood up for our people. I think it's an enormous loss, not just for Africa and the Black race. It's an enormous loss for humanity. An enormous loss for humanity because beyond standing against apartheid, he also stood up for other causes in the name of justice and human rights, whether it be Palestine, and even, look at how progressive he was, even for LGBTQ people. I mean, if a man like Desmond Tutu cannot become the first Black Pope, don't ask me who can become that. And I'm saying that not because I value for Black people to be validated by non-white institutions, absolutely not, but it's to show you that in a certain way, it's a typical story of a Black person who rose and shone above and beyond, and yet still, may not have been recognized as rightfully as it should have been. It's a big loss, but at the same time, we have to be happy that he lived his life. We have to be happy of what he accomplished, and we have to carry on the torch of what he accomplished. And I say this because even though apartheid has ended on paper, South Africa has gross systemic discriminations. And the craziest thing, South Africa actually has a concept of racism, anti-white racism, and this country of Canada actually gave refugee status to a white man from South Africa, claiming he was victim of systemic racism in South Africa when white South Africans still control the economy and society. A certain Elon Musk, aka richest man in the world right now, with $200 billion, is from South Africa, aka father notably owned a mine, aka Black workers. So you see so many examples of what Desmond Tutu stood up for. Let's not forget LGBTQ people are still being very much killed in South Africa. So many issues for which, if we really honor him, if we really want to stand up for what he stood up for, we must continue the fight, the struggle for him. Whether we're Black or not, whether we're Pan-Africanist or not, whether or not we are Christian or not.
Elle.
Thank you, Elle.
Yeah, and just to add to that, it's also, the passing of an era in perhaps another way in which something the ANC is struggling, which I also think is very instructive for those of us who want a different kind of world, is that we have to be careful not to just inherit the white world and then replace ourselves into it. So, Ramaphosa, who was an amazing union organizer, he organized the mines hugely, the mining workers, and then, of course, was involved in the gunning down of miners in Marikana, while the ANC was government. So, this is something that Dennis Brutus talked about a lot, right? That he said, that a lot of the vision that the ANC had for nationalizing mines, for making sure everybody had land, for, this collective vision, because of the pressures of the West, right, that would not allow an end to apartheid unless South Africa buckled to the white-run banks that run the globe, unless we accepted this kind of global rule of white supremacy, that we could have, and as they talked about, we could have a Black government, but we weren't allowed to have a Black country. So we never got the land back, we never got the mines back, we never got industry back, we never got the financial industry back. That stuff, as Cesar said, is all run by white people who in fact now own a bigger percentage of the economy and land now than they owned under apartheid. They've continued to accrue wealth in a Black country. All you have is now some Black billionaires and millionaires as well, who have learned to make that money at the expense of the poor Black masses. So, you know, as we think about these things like what does a Black economy look like, we have to be very careful that it actually is a Black economy and not just a white supremacist economy with some Black figureheads that are allowed to exist. So, you know, seeing Ramaphosa is like very disappointing, right? Somebody who was such a great leader, such a revolutionary, and then what he's done now in terms of his attacks on workers. So it's an end of an era in another way as well. A lot of the very principled activists have now passed. And what the ANC looks like now is not the same ANC that was the ANC of the 80s. So I think that's an instructive lesson to the rest of us as well, that what does power look like? And we want a different kind of power. We don't just want the same system with us in place. We want a different system.
Power corrupts.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just jump in here and I'll bring it back to Canada on the Black Canadian. I think one of the stories that and it's still carrying on, is all these Black organizations that sprung up claiming to help Black Canadians. Like, organizations kept springing up out of the woodwork that's saying they're going to help Black Canadians. Now, the second part is what's going to happen in 2022, but organizations I never heard of before, this, that, the other thing. I just like, okay, like, who's this? Who's that? Like, every time I closed it, I heard about another Black organization was going to help Black Canadians. And I said, okay, which leads to the question, why can't they work together? But that's a 2022 conversation we'll have in a bit. But everyone just, you know, and very much this year for me when it comes to Black Canadians, and Ryan knows I say this all the time on our Morning Vibe show, trauma, repetition, symbolism. This year, when I look at things that are going on in the Black environment, because Dr. Vibe doesn't think there's a Black community, that's just me, I look at trauma, symbolism, repetition, and more, I don't even get past the trauma part. So just piggybacking on what Elle said in regards to our first topic, in regards to people being alone and lonely, the amount of trauma that I witnessed this year in different forms increased this year in Black Canada from from where I'm sitting. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Well, and the trauma is what I'm seeing that's what's keeping us from fully collaborating and working towards that empowerment. And a book that I started reading, The Blueprint for Black Power by Dr. Wilson Amos, the question that keeps coming up is, whose problem are you actually solving? When Elle's talking about creating a new power structure that's just a Black face on white power, that is not solving the Black community's problem. So when we're getting this money from the government, or when we're starting organizations, and I'll say Black North, it started with 4 founders that were leaders of organizations like Cisco and CIBC, and coming together to solve their problem. They want to grab the cream of the crop within their organizations to work for CIBC and be on their boards and exec. That really doesn't trickle down to the core root of economic empowerment for the Black community. And I keep saying, like, Victor Dojic, you run CIBC, teach the Black community how to create our own CIBC. Teach us how to start a financial institution that can compete with you, because that solves our problem. And yes, it does create competition for CIBC and the like, but that's how you actually prove that you want to see the Black community prosper and become empowered. If you're just saying, oh, the best people working at CIBC, we're going to give them 3% of board seats. Well, hey, if that's what every year you're going to parade out and announce at your summits, that more Black people are being hired at executive levels in white-run organizations, or not even white-run, but organizations that further white supremacy, then what have we really accomplished? And that's when you talked about all these organizations popping up. It's been about a year now. So those popped up in 2020. In 2021, it was the year anniversary of a lot of these organizations. And when we had Louis March on the Morning Vibe, he talked a lot about the lack of evaluation of organizations in our community. I think it was less than 1%. He used that statistic to say like what amount of budget goes towards evaluation. So if you look down the line, and I have a spreadsheet of all these organizations that popped up, I call and email, be like, hey, so what happened in the past year? What's next? What's going? Either you don't get a response,
or you get blocked. They actually accuse you of harassing them and block you.
Yeah, they get defensive. They're like, why are you asking me that?
Well, see, that goes back to one of my core three: symbolism.
But that's what I'm saying. What they've popped up and said they're going to do, and this is happening with corporations too. 500 of them have signed on to the Black North CEO pledge, but Global Mail reports, hey, they're not progressing with the pledge that they made. So who's holding them accountable to what they said they're going to do?
But the thing is, Ryan, we need more people like that are on this screen to hold them accountable. Because if it's only one or two people,
that's where if I ask L, hey, come hold me accountable for free. Nah, put me in your line item. Put evaluation in there and then reach out to Cesar and say, you know what? We're running this program. We want to make sure that we're in tune with the path that empowers Black community. And we need somebody to oversee that. That should be a line item. And even for the money that we're getting from the Black Entrepreneurship Program through the Ecosystem Fund, evaluation is like 15% of the budget because it means nothing to go 4 years and you're right back where you started with your handout to the government saying like, we really feel like we can help the Black community if you give us more money. It's like, nah, what have you been doing? How have we taken that money and leveraged it to start creating our own capital so we don't even have to go back to the government and say we need more money? We've now been able to get a financial institution off the ground. We've been able to leverage the money that we deposit in that institution to lend to ourselves. These are all questions that we need to be asking internally with the organizational leaders. But
and Ryan,
Al's ready.
The Financial Post or the Globe and Mail or the National Post, I doubt it, because the other thing we have to understand is that the government is never going to fund our liberation. They're not in the business of destroying themselves, right? They're not like, oh, let me give you money to get Black people out of prison so we don't have a prison system. Like, they don't want to do that.
They'll never do that.
But we always have to recognize that they're funding us for their own interests. They're funding us to the extent that funding us prevents other things. So we need to, as you said, learn to leverage the funding we do get into things that they do not anticipate that works for us. Because they're not giving us money to free us. They're giving us money to keep us on a leash.
Cesar, you haven't said
I want to touch on that real quick because
go ahead.
Face Coalition got 30 million direct to lend and access to 300 million to also lend. If you ask them, can you use some of that money to help get our own financial institution off the ground? The answer is no, because the government has not given them the ability to make their own decisions. So that to me is a really big problem. Because now you can't even use the money to leverage it for what you actually need. You're stuck in the parameters of what the government is giving you. So again, whose problem are we really solving?
Cesar, you're holding back. I see you smiling too. When I see that look on your face, I don't know if I should block my screen now or duck. Go ahead.
That was a very good conversation. We have a problem. I mean, like I said from the start, 2022, like 2021, right? We have a fundamental problem. I don't disagree with what my brother Ryan said, but what my brother Ryan said is actually part of the problem. We cannot be a Black community that wants to change its fate and sustain itself while keeping a hand here asking for aid from the government. First and foremost, yes, the government always acts according to its interests, as they should. Doesn't make them racist, doesn't make them bad. That's how they should be.
That's capitalism.
It's not just capitalism. It's how a state should be run. It's our African nations, our Caribbean nations that get dominated and as such end up playing in the globalization world of white supremacy against our local populations. But in terms of our communities, I'm sorry. Allow me to give you, Brother Ryan, a very concrete example. I invite everyone, I'm not trying to do some self-promotion here. On my Facebook page, I shared it. No, our CEO, Kesia Peters, shared it today. I tagged a few people. You will see that link in terms of what we have done for our people in Haiti following the earthquake in August 2021. We didn't wait for money from the government. We worked within our own. We reached out from our own pockets. We reached out to other communities and for people to volunteer. We sent 2 cargoes of food, wheelchairs, medical equipment, diapers, etc., etc. 2 cargoes in Haiti. I refuse to continue that narrative in terms of Black people only being able to uplift themselves with government money. Be careful. I am not saying to refuse funding. I am not saying as long as we live in integration. I am a director in the provincial government. What kind of hypocrite would I be to be speaking so anti-government? However, government has limits to what it can, to what it wants, to what it will do, versus the will and the drive of people who are first concerned. That's it. That's all. When you look at the thriving communities in Canada, aka in Anglo-Saxon countries, because whether we look at the UK, Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand, you tend to notice, I'm going to be blunt, I always say it, how are Jewish and Chinese communities succeeding? They come together. They have an identity consciousness. They have a spiritual consciousness. They have a sense of self and community. Do we want to address our Black community? Do we want to address what I call the 3 cancers of the Black psyche? Entertainment, consumerism. The Black community is not poor. I say it, I repeat it. The Black community is not poor. And this is proven by data. Blacks are the #1 consumers in terms of identity in North America, which proves they are not poor. The Black community just has a mindset that rejects building on its own, notably due to distrust. This is why an Indian person from India can come open a store in the middle of the Black community selling fake hair and he will get rich. This is a concrete example in the same sense as in Africa, you have a person who lives Guangzhou or Wuhan or the Xinjiang province, throw them in the middle of Africa in the market, he will sell African food at a cheaper price. The Africans will go buy from him instead of buying from the fellow Africans. And that Chinese person will get richer in Africa than they would in China.
Wow.
These are concrete facts. I presented on this China Africa in 2012 in university.
And it hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. So it's not the government funding aid, new organization, summit, this, whatever you want to call it. It means nothing when the vast majority of our Black people are more interested in watching the next entertainment show. They're more interested in buying the next pair of Jordans or whatever is going to go be a waste for showing off. They're more interested in going to pray. And I say it, Jesus and Allah, and then to be wondering why they're not getting the respect from the co-religious brothers and sisters of a different race. Only the Black community is seen acting like that.
Okay.
Only the Black community in the world. Come on.
So I want to ask all 3 of your questions. So on a scale of 1 to 10, or even 0 to 10, 0 being total disaster, 10 being great, how do you rate the year for Black Canadians?
2021 or the start
2021, 2021 on a scale of 0 to 10.
I have to be positive, but unfortunately, very unfortunately, it's not so much because of good things that happen in Canada. I have to be positive. I'm not a positive person by nature, but I'm not a pessimistic person. I'm a realist.
Okay.
So without going too much in details, events that happen globally will end up being positive in Black consciousness and actions here in Canada. The Derek Chauvin trial of guilt will help. COVID will help. Even what has happened in Haiti, as unfortunately as it sounds, such as an earthquake or the killing of a president, it will help because if there's one thing, and I think we can all agree on this, I mean, the Black person who disagrees has a mental problem. I say it. When you see what's happening, whether it be in Haiti or whether it be in the US or whether it be, I mean, all three of us Black men here can be that George Floyd. Sister L could have been Sandra Bland. What happened in Haiti could happen in any African country because we all know what would happen if there's a disaster. Our Black consciousness will keep growing as in the 21st century of information and knowledge, we keep seeing the consequences of what happens if we keep failing our children. It's not just us. It's our children that we keep failing. Because as they keep growing and they keep being in multiculturalism and integration, those non-Black people are seeing the same thing and they'll be like, how come you keep failing? How come you keep promoting low standards? How come you keep celebrating being on the losing side of what is happening? The templates are here for success. The conversation is here. There should be thousands of Black people listening to this right now.
I'm gonna cut you, Cesar. I wanted a number. You gave me you gave me on a scale 1 to 10, 0 to 10, the year in Black Canada, year for Black Canadians from
I'm
0 to 10.
I'm gonna leave it at 5.
Okay, Ryan.
First, I want to grade myself. So with our organization, I feel like based on our potential versus what we accomplished, we're at a 4. What I would love to see for the Black community is that scorecard and use Black History Month as a time to come together and say, how did we do this year? And then we can measure it against certain variables. I don't know what to measure it against. My head is in like the economic realm. I don't know what's happening with health. I don't know what's happening with education. I don't know what's happening with the justice system.
All right. So
I don't want to grade it.
On a 0 to 10, Black Canadian Black business. Since your head is in the business, I want. What would you say?
I would give it a 6.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're on the right track.
All right, L. Jones.
I think it's wildly schizophrenic at these times. We live in very interesting times. So some of the most irritating and frustrating stuff has happened this year, and some of the most stuff with the most potential has happened this year, which is, I think, what always happens in a time of change, right? So there's been stuff where I'm just like, I cannot believe we're doing this, or is this what really came out of 2020? Like, is this what we're really going to do? And then on the other hand, we have Black markets, we have young Black people in the streets, we have, it can be very easy to kind of get caught up in what frustrates you. And then I think about where we were like 5 years ago and 10 years ago. I was getting booed in community talking about police 5 years ago, and now everybody's on board with that, prisons and stuff, like even as pathetic as it is, at least our government's made some move to justice reform and decriminalization and stuff. And it's not good enough by any means, but they weren't doing anything, like from Harper on, we were on a downward trend, and at least we're going back up. So I think it can be very easy, especially, I'm like, revolutionary. So I'm just like, like, how is this? So I can be like 0, negative 10, but then there is a lot of change happening, and that process is going to be painful because we're still working out how to change it. So it's a 5, but it's like a 0 and an 8, like that is somehow not even mathematically averaging out to a 5. So some things I think have progressed a lot and give hope. And then some things we have to be, and I think I've made that very clear through this show. Like, I think we have to be very wary of what happens as we get more power and opportunity and what we do with that, and not getting led astray and not letting that be co-opted. Not allowing this struggle to become some kind of bourgeois, like neoliberal, middle class, talented 10th struggle, and remembering it's for all of us. But so there's much that encourages me and some that really frustrates me. So, yeah.
All right.
White supremacists with melanin skin. We don't want that. We don't want that.
Okay.
Exactly. No blackface on white power. People are like,
Becky Thomas wants to weigh in.
Well, she can't come into. I think she wants to come in. She can't. She can comment. You can comment, Sandy, but we can't let you into the conversation. But if you want to come on another conversation, my email address. We would certainly love to have you on a roundtable. Tia Shirley is saying, I heard, but the younger generation, the Black community, are changing this point of view. So many millennials and younger people are becoming entrepreneurs or side hustle with it while working and spending with Black owned.
That's what I said. Global events. Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
One piece that I want to piggyback off that comment, because during the Kwanzaa celebrations through CAFCAN, Jean Augustine was on each day. And then I believe it was the last day, Imani, where she just talked about her experience coming to Canada. And it was so interesting hearing what she was dealing with when she came to Canada and then the progress that's been happening along the way. Because myself, starting an organization, I'll look at Jean Augustine and be like, oh, what have you done? Things are still like mash up in the Black community. But I'm not dealing with what she was dealing with at the time when she was trying to do better for the community. So these young millennials that, yes, now we have the ability and the access and legislation that's in place that keeps things from really holding us back to get like make more progress and get things done faster. So a lot of times we feel like, oh, we're starting from scratch and look what I can do. Like, nah, there's been so much that is built up, so much foundational stuff. And sure, it might not have been the perfect foundation that we're building from, but we have to continue to build. Don't start from scratch. That's what I see, like Dr. Vibe, you're saying all these organizations popped up and said, oh, there's a big problem and now people are paying attention. We can fix it. It's like, yeah, but don't start from zero. Start from whatever it is that somebody else has built. Build from that. And I feel like we'll get further a lot faster. But I talk to these other organizations and everybody feels like they have the solution. They feel like they're the only organization that can get it done. And then I say, but hey, if I help you with your ideas, you'll get it done faster. And they're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And then it's like, yes, we have two. And now we just get a third person. And just keep adding more people that believe in the mission. For me, 2022 is the time to separate those that feel working with the Black community is difficult and they've given up with those that know it's difficult to work with the Black community and are still forging ahead. I can rock with these people. Let's, as hard as it is, lean into complexity and continue to build. If I talk to you and you're just complaining and you've given up, hey, all the best. And whatever we build, hopefully it supports you in some way, but I can't focus there.
And that's also trauma, right? And I think that's something very difficult. We struggle so hard to get where we are. Like we have to fight to get our qualifications, fight to get our place. And then it's really hard to think, I just did all this work and I just like give it away to somebody, right? But it's not giving it away, right? We have to, and that's again, a very capitalist, very white supremacist idea of thinking. And because, we struggle so hard in this systems to get our credentials or our place, so we're like, but I'm like, I just got a job, now you're asking me to mentor someone else to take my job. And I think that's one of the difficult dynamics in our community, that we have so much trauma from like just trying to eat, that then when we get something, we're trying to hang on to it. And it's very difficult to open your hand up and say, yeah, you come in too. Let me train you. Let me mentor you. So I think we need to sort of get past that scarcity mentality that's being put into us and understand that, when you're like, it's not that somebody else is getting granted and it's taking away from you. It's like, it's yes. Actually enhancing us when other people come in or, and so I think it's sometimes hard, especially for some of our elders when they're not the only and they've always been the only. And then they're like, oh, but I was the only person doing this. And they feel like it's being taken from them when there's 10, but that's actually a good thing. And it's hard to do as a Black person. But I think we need to not be scared of being made redundant. We need to not be scared of being replaced, which is something that happens to Black people. We're interchangeable, right? So we know that nobody's like hanging on for Elle. If Elle ain't there, they'll find another Black person. They don't care. I can go die in a ditch. I can just find somebody else. And we internalize that. And so we need to support each other in that so that we know that our people will have us and we don't have to keep fighting for relevance. Oh, if I'm not in the news this year, who am I? Or, I'm not being selected for this, right? Our people need to select us. And then we really need to, I think, get past that trauma and that fear of being like obscure or dying without being known. And like realize that it enhances us when we give to more. And that can be really difficult, but that's something that's a huge trauma in our community, I think.
Well, we're segueing both Ryan and Elle segue to the last part of our conversation. Like, what should Black Canada focus on as goals, visions for 2022? So I know Ryan and Elle, you started. What would you like to add, Cesar?
I was just going to say to what Elle was saying, that it is very much that trauma and that fear, a dual sword, a double-edged sword of what integration brings it. A celebration of being in the room slash being at the table, and institutions due to equity, diversity, and inclusivity making more space for Black people, notably to better salaries, better titles, etc., etc. But at the same time, for so many in the Black community, either becoming too comfortable in integration and as such turning their backs on the Black community, but at the same time, so many losing hope while a younger Black generation is rising. A younger Black generation, which, yeah, they can be more integrated because, let's say, they grew up with white friends or they have a white partner, but they have a Black consciousness. They want things to be better. And we have more and more allies who are coming on board learning. It's not just a matter of, reading a white privilege or basically saying the right words. It's about, what? I have a Black friend. Maybe I have a Black child. We need to also talk to that very specific segment of the Canadian, American, French, British population that tends to go under the radar. White women who are mothers of biracial / mixed children who are Black. We need to talk to them because that number is growing. Those children are growing in numbers. We need to make sure that not only they come into the Black community, not just because of skin color, but because of identity, consciousness. And as such, the movement keeps growing, but keeps growing in a good way. That's very important.
Mm-hmm. And one last piece, I see a lot of times we don't feel like we can do things parallel. It's either integration or segregation. And every time I talk to a person that feels like, oh, we have to build our own stuff, they dismiss what integration has done, and we're in this system and how to work with government. And then I talk to a person that's deep in government and they're like, oh, we don't need to build our own stuff. We just have to be better at this table. We don't have to go and build our own table. I was like, no. We can do things parallel. We are beautiful, powerful, talented people that can not disregard the one side to do one thing. And like you said, then get comfortable in government and be like, oh, now that I have a seat at the table, everything is better for the community. It's like, no, we still need to empower ourselves.
Yeah, again, we have to create our own table.
Right. When everything gets stripped down, you realize what you truly have. And COVID truly stripped the Black community down. Because and you look around and you're like, what do we have?
You look at many other cultures out there that get money from the government, they create their own.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. They have that, like Cesar was saying, the mentality of groupthink. So when they get, hey, Jewish, Chinese, South Asian, they get a lot of government grants too. So it's not
they do. Of course they do.
But then what they use it for is different than what we're seeing the Black community use it for, because that collaboration.
We got some interesting comments that are popping up here. So 10. I'm going to hopefully get this. If I get it wrong, it's my head, not my heart. Tatananisha. I hope I got it right. Yes, moving away from scarcity is moving away from white supremacy. Sandy says, Pastor Sandy, by the way, in 2020, we have and are continuing to create innovatives in our Black community that gives us more opportunities. She also says, goal number 1, mental wellness for our community. And then Sarah says, how can we talk about Black Canada when the Prime Minister hasn't apologized for slavery in Canada and haven't recognized the International Decade for people of African descent? Cesar, go ahead.
Just one little correction, and I am, I'm never there to speak either in defense of non-Blacks or whatever, but the truth and the facts must remain. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau did recognize the decade for people of African descent. I was at the Parliament when he did it. That was in 2018. So he did do that. And part of, I don't remember all the words of his speech. It can easily be found online. But if I shouldn't say apologize, unless I'm wrong, there was a recognition of slavery and such.
You know what? And you just got a compliment. I believe Pastor Santos, I like what this young man has been saying. What is his name or contact information? Well, he is a young man in my books. Pastor Sandy, I'll make sure if I'll make sure I'll get you Cesar's contact information. One of the things I also want to leave with too, especially in 2022, is this is just Dr. Vibe speaking. The greatest area of wealth that every Black person has is in your family. That is the greatest form of wealth. We have to, and again, trauma plays, because I'm sure everyone on this screen and everyone's watching this live, or you've always heard from other family members say, I can't go near that person. They're too jacked up. I can't deal with them. They're too jacked up. I can't deal with them. But
yes,
family, because you look at many people who don't look like us, how prevalent is generational wealth in their communities?
Yeah, there's a great YouTube video talking about all the brands that we know that are last names, and the strength and the generational wealth of these last names. That all stemmed from, hey, father, mother, hustling for that last name. It's like, we are going to build this thing that is going to feed generations of our family.
Yeah, it's all this generational thing, right? A lot of it is generational.
Yeah,
all the same, like,
family,
you know. And here's the greatest example, non-white example of generational wealth: the royal family.
Yes.
You know, MP. Like, you know, Frank Bayless, who's an MP, his sister, Francois, was actually one of my professors. And I had no idea that they had this medical company, because she's just an ordinary woman, like, lives in a modest house, you know, like, worked. And then I found out that company sold for like $1.2 billion or something. I'm like, Francois is like a billionaire, you know? I know her, but like, she doesn't flash it around. You wouldn't like, Francois not driving around in 20 whips and like, you know, like that's obviously like, that's a family company. They're preserving it through the family. She's not living. I never knew. And we were all
family,
but she's, you know, producing and working, right?
And to add to people who don't realize, the royal family is the biggest landowner family in the world. Generation after generation after generation. And
I think McDonald's might have beat them.
Huh?
I said McDonald's might have beat them. I'm joking. I don't know.
But like, how many generations it goes back? And it was even scarier. We've contributed to their wealth.
That's why I celebrate so much what you know, our brothers and sisters in Barbados have done, aka they have truly become free by letting go of the Commonwealth. But even when we don't need to look at the royal family right here in Canada, the Western family that owns the Loblaws, but also the Rogers family, and you know, so many examples. Even when we look at the richest, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, what's his name, Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett. Look at the parents. Look at the parents. A certain Donald Trump. Look at the father. So that generational wealth. And allow me to give here a very important message in terms of you, brother Dr. Vibe, saying the family. Very often people think Black people, we survive the atrocities of history because of our faith, because of religion, Christianity, Islam, but even spirituality, such as, example, voodoo. The truth of the matter is that our survival came from what Dr. Vibe talked about, the sense of family. That sense of family from blood, brother or sister, or even in that escape, looking and catching that other child, looking out after that brother or sister who, from the slave field to even, you know, under segregation, apartheid, but even right here, my mother was one of the first Black people in Ottawa, 1978. There are stores I go to in Ottawa. They've seen me as a kid, and they knew my mother before I came to even Canada. We have to create that sense of community. It takes that Black consciousness so that we stop something too many Black people do, especially Black men, that mean mugging of looking tough like a bunch of Black pit bulls out there, angry face, and a sense of my brother, my sister. No more of that, my nigger, my this, my that. My brother, my sister. It all starts here. It all starts right here.
Agreed. Well, last comment I'm going to give from the audience here: generational wealth is key, but without, I don't know if she finish it without every, but generational wealth is awesome, but general mental health is key. Fully agree. Where the mind goes, the person follows. Bottom line. So we will end it off for today, first episode in the new year. We'll give everyone a chance to, to all of you and to the audience that watch live and going to watch the replay. Ryan, where can people get in touch with you?
Best bet is to go to acbncanada.com. We just closed a $250,000 round for our microloan program. So if you're an entrepreneur that's looking for capital and, hey, need help with your business plan, need help with your cash flow in order to just get the application done and in, we are there to take you from A to Z and then get you ready for additional capital. So again, acbncanada.com, fill out our business needs assessment form. We're really going to be pushing capital into entrepreneurs' hands and then helping them navigate growing their companies. So I'm looking forward to that, and we shall be talking shortly.
Absolutely. Cesar.
Honestly, you can still find me on Facebook. I'm here. Cesar Remy Emery. And also online. rootsandculturecanada.com. We appreciate the support. We have big things that are coming in 2022. You will see it happen. On my Facebook and the Facebook of our CEO, Ketia Peters, you can see the work that we did with volunteers and other organizations in relief for our Haitian brothers and sisters following the August earthquake. So many Black communities that we must assist, but we can't do it without you, without your support, and without coming and working together as brothers and sisters and allies, aka non-Blacks, having a consciousness that things must change. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Let's run out L. Jones.
Mostly just email el.jones@msvu.ca, Mount St. Vincent University. You can always find me there. I have Facebook, but it's full. So,
No problem. Well, I would like to thank everyone who watched it live. Ryan had to leave, so he is departed, but he'll certainly be back. Just want to say to everyone who watches this live or watches it on the replay also, or listen to it on the replay, thanks very much. We're looking for another exciting year on Black Canada Talking. Going to be another good one. We've got our January is all booked up, but every 2 weeks you'll see these three individuals who are smarter than me come on, and we'll have so can't forget Sarah Yango, who's in Africa right now, back home, but she'll be back. I think she'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll look forward to that conversation. So as always, I want to end off with this: live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you need to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace. Also, going to encourage you to follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook and on YouTube. I also host 2 other conversations on the regular, one of them called The Morning Vibe with Ryan Knight. We do that Monday mornings and Friday mornings at 9 a.m. And actually tomorrow morning on The Morning Vibe, we have Robert Small. And not only have I known Robert Small for a long time, but Robert Small was just recently given the recipient of an Order of Canada. So he's going to be with The Morning Vibe on Monday, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and also Saturday evenings at 9 p.m. I host an epic conversation with Isha K. Staggers and Jill Jones, and it's called State of Things, where they give their takes on America, politics, and culture. As always, I'd like to thank BIA Media for the excellent production. God bless, peace to all, keep the faith, and remember to give yourselves grace. And also, family. Focus on the family. That is the beginning of wealth, not only emotionally, spiritually, but financially. Focus on the family. Goodbye.